Welcome everybody to the Thursday, February the 11th, 1 p.m. Budget and Finance Committee meeting. We will limit physical access in the meeting room due to current limitations on public gatherings. Accommodations have been made to ensure that the public is safe. The public is able to participate in the meeting. The public may participate in the following ways. May watch the meeting on Franklin TV or the City of Franklin website. Watch the live stream through the City of Franklin Facebook and YouTube accounts. Call into the conference meeting at 312-626-6799. Meeting ID is 916-4512-1718 with passcode is 874393. Callers will be unmuted and given an opportunity to comment during the meeting at specific times. Limited viewing will be available in the lobby of City Hall to watch the live video. The public may email comments and questions prior to the day of the meeting to recorder at franklintn.gov to be read aloud. The city YouTube is youtube.com/user/City of Franklin. The Facebook is facebook.com/City of Franklin. And the website is the Franklin. That's left off. Let's see if I can. Got it. Let's call the meeting to order with a roll call vote. Alderman Peterson.
Mr. Chairman, you're muted at this moment.
Let's do a roll call vote. Alderman Peterson, are you present?
Here.
Alderman Speedy, are you present?
Present.
Alderman Shore, are you present?
Present.
All right, let's go to meeting procedures. Item 1, consideration of resolution 2021-14, a resolution declaring that the Budget and Finance Committee shall meet on February the 11th, 2021 and conduct its essential business by electronic means rather than being required to gather a quorum of the members physically present in the same location because it is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. Do I hear a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Second. Let's do a roll call vote. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Speedy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Shore, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the chair votes.
Mr. Chairman, you're muted again, sir.
Let's go to item 2, then consideration of approval of minutes of the January 14th, 2021 Budget and Finance Committee meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Move for approval.
Proper motions are a second.
Second.
Let's do a roll call vote. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Speedy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Shore, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the chair votes.
Mr. Chairman, there must be something that you're doing when you're voting that keeps turning your sound on to mute. Yeah.
We will look closer. Let's go to resolution item 3, resolution 2020-184. A resolution to amend the table of organization for the Information Technology Department. Jason Potts, Eric, do you want to cover that? Or is Jason available?
Well, we have made some adjustments and we're proud to appoint Jason as our Director of IT. He had previously served in the Assistant Director role. So in his new leadership role, he's looked at some different modification to the organizational chart, and I'll have Jason walk through that with you.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Christine, is there anything you wanted to add before I go into the detail of the restructure?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Chairman, is that okay? I just want to give just a little background that in the first few months of calendar year 2020, the IT director at that time and also one of our assistant IT directors left the City of Franklin's employment. They resigned early last calendar year. Jason Potts was at that time serving as one of our assistant directors, and he agreed to help us out as interim director, which lasted until around Thanksgiving. He agreed to assist us right before the pandemic, which gave us some time to operate under a little different staffing model. And then we did a national search in the fall, and Jason was appointed by the city administrator as our IT director. So this request that Jason's going to describe is it's actually not requesting any additional authorized positions for the IT department. It is the same number of authorized positions, and it is not requesting any additional funding. It is solely a change in the organizational chart. So if I could let our IT director, Jason Potts, explain his request, which I'm supportive of. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. As Christine noted, I very much appreciate the opportunity to serve in this role. I've got a lot of historical knowledge and worked with Franklin and seen it grow over the last 19 to 20 years. And with being in technology, I've seen a lot of the things that have worked really good for us and some things that we could improve on. And with our current skills and the staffing and the knowledge that we currently have, and also tying it into our current state of operations, we really feel that adding a database administrator that's going to solely work and tie the security in to the infrastructure is a good move for our current state of operations. You can see Michael has shared the screen here. The database administrator is a position that's highlighted in yellow that reports directly to the assistant director of applications and administration. There's a lot of security and cyber related things that go along with the database security, that this position will work very, very closely with our infrastructure team, specifically the data center team. So we really feel that taking advantage of our current number of operating personnel, that we can concentrate, and this position will be very busy if it concentrates on a security and a strictly technical area. So that's one of that's the primary position that's going to be touched on in the reorg. So with that's really it. That previously it did have supervisory responsibilities. It will not have that moving forward. It will be a strictly high level technical position that works in architecture. And we feel that with the workload that's going to go along with that role, we're going to get the value from that and making that change now. The information systems manager, which is highlighted to the left, that's the current position that sort of does the database work as well. So that will continue to oversee the information systems analyst team. So we're not requesting any change there. They just won't have the focus with the database work. With that, I'll turn it back over to Michael, or if there's anything that Christine you want to add that I may have missed, or Eric as well, I'll turn it back over at this time.
Just to reemphasize, it is a budget neutral change. It reflects Jason's vision of how we can best match the needs of the organization, and especially bringing in, focusing on this high level technical expert in the database field. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Jason's put a lot of thought into it and test drove elements of this already, as Christine reflected over several months. So I think it makes a lot of sense.
Eric, do we need a motion to forward this to the full board? Okay. I'll
Yes.
entertain a motion for item 2020-184. The motion would be to forward to the full board.
I'll move it, Commissioner Schroer.
Is there a second?
Second.
Let's do a roll call vote. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Speedy, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Alderman Shore, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the chair votes
Mr. Chair, whatever you just did, that was what happens right there.
Okay, we'll keep our finger a different place, all right? Eric, you wanted to make some comments before we go into our budget presentations.
Yeah, just real quick as we get started here, we're entering this part of our budget process where over the next 3 months, 3 meetings of the Budget and Finance Committee, different departments will come forward and present their budgets to you. That is not different. That's what we've done for many years. And it is their opportunity to talk about what's going on in their organization, how it's addressing community needs and what they see going forward, both in the immediate budget year and in the years beyond that, so that we can be thinking long-term. So you'll see that same discussion. What is a little different this year is, as you know, we made a lot of adjustments in response to the pandemic and the resulting economic impact. The budget we worked through for the bulk of fiscal 21 has been a 10% reduction overall and 10% reduction in the general fund. We did do some restoration in the fall, but nowhere near complete of that. And so when you hear and you look at program enhancements, it is a mix of both new initiatives, but also maybe elements that are restoring or even rethinking parts of what we are doing in our base operations. So we're not just assuming restorations of things that had been in prior budgets. A lot of times when you go through some of the adjustments we did, and we saw this when we went through the recession 10 years ago, that you learned some things and you may pick up some efficiencies or realign certain things and figure that may make sense going forward. So we haven't automatically assumed restorations in these budgets. So you may see elements that are talked about in terms of budget requests that address that. And then you will see, like you do in normal years, new initiatives, new ideas that departments are bringing forward as well. Our team, again, has done a really good job in responding throughout this year and making changes both in the budget that we presented to you and on short notice, but throughout the years we've adjusted, modified operations, but still stayed focused on serving at a high level. And as I shared with the board this fall, leading into budget, we want to come through this in a stronger position and in a highly competitive position as a community. And part of that is focused on how, yes, we respond to the pandemic, but also how do we continue to meet community needs? How do we take care of our people, take care of our community? How do we deliver key infrastructure projects effectively? And how do we maintain the capacity to respond to the needs of one of the fastest growing cities in America? So that is what we're focused in on. And I look forward to sharing these departmental presentations with you over the next 3 months. And with that, I'll hand it off to Chief Faulkner and her team.
Item 4, budget presentation, police department and drug fund. Chief Faulkner, are you ready?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I appreciate it. And good afternoon to all of you, distinguished members of the Board of Mayor and Alderman. And I also see Mayor Moore is present. I'm honored to represent the men and women of the Franklin Police Department today and every day. And I want to thank each and every one of you for your continued support of your police officers. With me today are Deputy Chief J.P. Taylor, here at the table, Deputy Chief Scott Butler, and our Fiscal Manager, Will McCarville. Since I presented the department's budget last year, the law enforcement profession has significantly changed, and that's putting it mildly. Some of these changes include avoiding group gatherings. Police officers rarely come to the roll call room anymore, if at all. Roll call is conducted from their vehicles out in the field over the radio. All of our training was done virtually. Calls for service were handled either over the telephone or from a distance and outdoors. All COVID protocols were followed. Officers have gloves. They have various styles of masks that they can wear, sanitizer for their hands and their arms and for their vehicle. We added a washer and dryer to our building for uniforms that need immediate attention. And our community programs had to be all canceled this year. 2020, you might say, had 3 challenges for law enforcement: a pandemic, numerous public gatherings and protests, and a mental health crisis, to include alcohol and drug abuse. Property crimes were down, primarily because most people were at home. But personal crimes, for example, domestic violence, assaults, and psychological emergencies were up. Officers worked extremely hard through all of this, and I'm really proud of just how resilient they have been. However, I do know that it's taken a toll on them. We can't work from home. Officers did not take time off because they felt a strong duty to be on patrol and to assist the citizens, but they did feel awfully isolated at times. Most of you probably know that cops thrive on the camaraderie of their fellow officers and being able to interact with the public. That's crucial, that interaction with the people that we serve. We had to put all of that on pause this past year, but we want to be optimistic about it for this year. Through all of the events of 2020, we maintained our law enforcement reaccreditation for the 20th year through the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, which is the gold standard for excellence in public safety. And we recently received our state accreditation through the Tennessee Police Chiefs Association. We continue to strive for professionalism as a law enforcement agency that stands out. We believe that the public that we serve deserves nothing less than the best. The budget submitted for your review and consideration represents the needs of the Franklin Police Department for the next fiscal year. There aren't a lot of changes to our budget. There is a slight increase in utilities. They're up about 3.3%. And contractual services are up 12.4%, which is our Axon contract to replace all of our tasers. Now, I'm presenting 10 program enhancements this year, and I carefully analyzed the needs of the department and narrowed them down to the ones that primarily replace outdated equipment or would provide new equipment that we need for a growing city. Program enhancement number 1, restoration of the budget line for police vehicles. These are one of our SUVs right here. Funding for new police vehicles was kind of put on pause for this year due to the pandemic. This was cut from our current budget. Vehicles, obviously, are essential to our day-to-day operation. I don't want us to fall behind in replacing our vehicles, particularly those with high mileage or those that require constant repairs. We're asking to catch up from what we lost this year with our fleet funding. This includes mostly marked, but some unmarked vehicles. Number 2, and these are some ugly pictures, but that's what our firing range looks like. The Franklin Police Department gun range is 17 years old and is in serious need of some major work. The automated target system needs to be replaced. The technology is outdated and unreliable. The range masters have patched it and put together workarounds, but there are continued breakdowns. Here's the bottom line. It's worn out and we need new equipment. This is a critical part of police training, and to be honest, it's the 3rd time that I've made this request, so I hope you'll consider it. Number 3, a nice picture of our police headquarters that we're very proud of. But one thing we need is to replace our original cameras that were installed with the building 10 years ago. The technology is outdated for our security and operational needs. So that's the security cameras for our headquarters building, request number 3. Number 4, this is something new, the request for a police counselor. This has been a year like no other for us. Law enforcement officers have been under a great deal of stress. We've had our sworn duty to keep our communities safe, and that includes responding to volatile and tragic situations. Last year, officers responded to 177 psychological emergencies, including 10 suicides. That's up 3 from the previous year where we had 7 suicides. There were 93 overdoses. Officers protected the public during more than 20 demonstrations and protests. And I thought it's important to mention that just yesterday, in listening to the police radio, we had 2 psychological emergencies in the morning. We had an overdose death, and we had a suicide yesterday afternoon, I'm sad to report. Franklin police officers completed 4,444 offense reports. Offenses that occurred in significant numbers included assaults, aggravated assaults, driving under the influence, and public intoxication. The offense data we have is really consistent with events unique to 2020. There were increasing numbers of people staying at home, and bars in Nashville closed, resulting in increased activity in Franklin bars, which could have contributed to the increase in domestic assaults and alcohol-related offenses. Police officers here made 2,162 arrests last year. An important part of my job is to protect those who protect us. This past year has been challenging to our officers, physically, mentally, and spiritually. I'm requesting a part-time position to serve as a police counselor. The mental health and well-being of our officers is extremely important. It's important that we're conducting training. It's so important that this year we added officer wellness to the classes that officers are required to participate in. This also ties in with Governor Lee's law enforcement reform recommendations. This police counselor would be in-house and available to our officers when they need to talk. We often do critical incident debriefings when we have a serious volatile situation, and those are very important. All of my program enhancements are important to the police department's mission. This one is critical to officer health and well-being. I'm often reminded that we hire and recruit officers from the human race. They're just human. And yet we often expect them to have superhuman abilities. Program enhancement number 5. On a lighter note, we'd like to establish the classification of Police Officer 2. This is the new classification. This would compensate officers who don't choose to become supervisors. They're happy wearing a silver badge. They're not interested in wearing a gold badge. This is important that we maintain that knowledge and experience and skill and tenure in the patrol division especially. This, of course, would need to be developed working with human resources, and it would require certain prerequisites in order to become a police officer too. Program enhancement number 6. These are 2 new officers that were sworn in here at the police department. They're out in the field working midnights right now. We'd like to restore $50,000 that was reduced from the police department's training budget during this fiscal year. This is needed as outside training is reopened for our officers, instructor certifications and recertifications. And if there's a need to send a new police officer to the state academy for post-certification, it would pay that tuition. We're in the process of taking applications right now for officers who are both Tennessee and other states certified. If they are from outside the state of Tennessee, they would be required to go to the state academy and receive their Tennessee certification. That costs money, but it's a quick turnaround. It's only 3 weeks instead of 11 weeks, and we can get these officers out in the field a lot quicker. Program enhancement number 7. Now, that's a funky picture on the right. This shows our community room right outside the little kitchen area where when people use our community room, and we hope they'll be able to do that again soon, they can make coffee, have refreshments and so on. And you can see, it looks like someone has spilled water and stained our carpet. This is the original carpet from 10 years ago when the building was built. So it's 10 years old. It's worn and it's in need of a fresh, clean look. There's a lot of traffic that's passed through this room. I feel a strong duty as the chief of police to take care of our building. It is a beautiful building, and I want to keep it that way. Program enhancement number 8. Cell phones for our police officers. The majority of our non-supervisory police officers are not issued a city cell phone. Many officers are having to use their personal cell phone to conduct city business. A lot of this happened during the pandemic because most people wanted to report things, but they wanted to do it over the phone. Well, our officers are out in the field in their car, so they have to call the citizens. There are often situations where a complainant will say, I'd like an officer to check the area and I'd like them to call me after they've done it. So they go out into the area, they patrol the area, they check for any kind of suspicious activity, and then they call the complainant back to tell them what they found or what they have determined. They're doing that on their personal cell phone. I'd like to purchase phones for them to use for police business so they don't have to use their personal phone. Program enhancement number 9. This is a new piece of equipment. It's a tactical phone system for the crisis negotiation team. This would be an upgrade for the police negotiators. It allows the team to communicate with a barricaded subject while maintaining a safe distance. The one they currently have is outdated technology. And the last program enhancement, I don't think that there is a photograph for. Again, it's the police department's community room. We want to replace the technology that's in there for the audio visual system. This allows for presentations, videos, any kind of training, community meeting materials that need to be shown on the big screen. Once COVID protocols allows for gatherings in this area of the building, the system will be needed. The current system is not working. That concludes the program enhancements. The final item is the drug fund. And I'll just mention that the drug fund is established by state law. It allows law enforcement agencies to set up a special revenue account for drug investigations. This revenue comes in the form of drug offense fines, other cash that's forfeited through the court system, and or the sale of forfeited property from illegal drugs. All of that is through the court. There are very strict guidelines for the use of these funds, and we follow them to the letter. We're keeping the budget status quo, and we'll never spend more than what we have in this fund. And you can see it there on the screen. I guess I would just like to say a few things in conclusion. The Franklin Police Department, I believe, and I hope you do, is well respected for its training, policies and procedures, selection of police officers. For both our international and state accreditation, we have very strict standards. We have a reputation for professionalism and a dedication to our duty and to our city. About a third of my officers are military veterans. One is a Silver Star recipient. I'm extremely proud of this department, and I hope you are as well. What I presented to you today is what I'm requesting for 2022. The budget for 2023, I hope, will be different. If so, I'll come to you with a request for additional police officers and vehicles to cover an ever-growing great American city. Growth by landmass, new businesses and corporations, new communities, and a huge jump in population. While it's been a difficult year, my vision for the near future of the Franklin Police Department has never faltered. It is to continue to plan and train for any and all crime trends that are ahead of us. Who knew there'd be a pandemic to deal with and protests and demonstrations like this past year? We'll continue to work hard to recruit police officers that mirror our city and share our values. We'll always evaluate issues related to officer safety and wellness and implement whatever they need to do their job effectively and safely, and most important, to go home to their families. We hope that the police department will always be looked upon with pride as an elite law enforcement agency that values the people that they serve and each other. And my last slide, that my officers will always walk into our building knowing that they are truly Franklin's finest. Franklin is a special place. We intend to keep it that way. I want to thank you, and I'll answer any questions because that concludes Franklin Police Department's budget.
Thank you, Chief. I'd like to just make two comments I think might be helpful. One thing, as you look at the more detailed packet and you see the total base budget numbers, it's essentially flat from where we are today, just about $17.4 million. So it's about a 1% increase base to base. So it's pretty much a flat budget in terms of what we're looking at in base budget right now. And also related to one of the topics that Chief touched on in her program enhancements, the police counselor position. We're actually moving forward right now under my administrative authority to do a contract service for the balance of this fiscal year to start and make that available. It actually is a contract service with the same professional that has a lot of experience in law enforcement and specific experience with our officers. So in talking about this with Chief and our budget presentation and some other issues we've talked about, and in fact, in the deputy chief interviews, this was a pretty common topic that came up in terms of identifying needs in our department, but in departments across the country. So I felt, and we feel like we've got capacity to have that and go ahead and start that service and maybe learn some things that help us understand how we want to place this or how we might approach this in the new budget. So I do want to let you know, within my administrative authority, we've gone ahead and put those services in place through a contractual arrangement. But other than that, we're glad to open it up to any questions you all have.
Any questions from any of the committee members? I do have one, so I'll start it out. On the new vehicles with 1.3 million, what is the total number that you're talking about there? You said marked and unmarked?
Yeah, I think it's about 20 marked and 10 unmarked.
We're
Just
talking
on the mileage and
30.
service at the time. The majority would be the marked vehicles.
That's in.
So did we replace any last year?
The vehicles that we are, the newest vehicles are from the previous budget. We did
Okay.
not,
Did not replace any?
Yeah, as part of our budget reductions last year, that was one of the items we took out. And just, we're trying to get back on that. We've been replacing somewhere in the 20 to 30 range a year prior to that. And we're trying to get our patrol vehicles in particular on a 5-year cycle. But last year, with the difficulties we were facing and uncertainty in the budget, this was an item we removed.
We did
Mr. Chairman.
issue. Go ahead, Christine.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just make a quick comment. It's, we did have vehicles that were ordered in fiscal year 20 that because of COVID-related issues at the factories, they weren't received until fiscal 21. And so you have seen in budget amendments that we've had to budget for equipment replacement in 21. Those were purchases that were ordered in fiscal 20. So there is a timing difference in some of the purchases of equipment that the board authorized in a previous budget. I just wanted to clarify that if you haven't seen that, you're going to be seeing that cleanup effort regarding equipment.
Christine's actually, she's right. There was a delay because the factories were closed. But another interesting thing happened, which sort of adds to police stress. While they were in Virginia being outfitted for part of the equipment, they were had paintballs fired on them. And so there was some damage to them. We had to wait for that to be corrected. So that's kind of thing we're dealing with these days, unfortunately.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So to follow the money, in fiscal 19, via the, I believe 2017 bonds, we issued $2 million to go and try to catch up our purchase of police cruisers. And then in fiscal 20, we tried to make the commitment to do roughly $1 million a year in the base budget. You'll notice through the budget materials that there's zero budgeted for 21, but that $905,000 expense that Christine was referring to, we will be, if you will, reappropriating the $1 million that was not spent at all, but budgeted in fiscal 20 as part of the budget cleanup. So over the last several years, there has been $3 million set aside to try to get onto the 5-year replacement cycle that the city administrator mentioned.
Any questions again from any of the committee members? If not, let's go to item 5, which is the budget presentation from the fire department. Chief Johnson, you're up.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the board. Appreciate y'all taking the time to let us give our presentation here today. Today joining me is Deputy Chief Andy King, Battalion Chief Ben Marler, and our budget analyst Joanne Finn, who once again has prepared us well for this presentation and given us a lot of good material. So Michael, if you're ready to put our presentation up. All right, let's move on to the next 2 slides. All right, you can go to number 3, Michael. All right, this year we've noticed a slight reduction in our call volume, approximately 2%. We ran an average of 8,700 calls for FY21. Some of this reduction in call service was a part of the pandemic. We mostly saw that on the side of our medical responses. I think our EMS and our hospital also saw those same reductions because people were hesitant to call. But we've been tracking this trend since January, and we're starting to notice a definite increase. We're already outpacing 2019's numbers and very close on 2020. So we are starting to notice an increase. All right, next slide, please. All right, so some of the things that we wanted to highlight, some exciting news that we've got coming down the pike is our opening of fire station number 7. We were supposed to have the unveiling of the street name today, which is after John Fitzgerald, retired assistant chief. Our station 7's address will be 1972, which was the year that Chief Fitzgerald started with the fire department. We had to cancel because of the weather, but we're looking to do something next week. This station is unique in that this is a one of a kind in this community. As far as inside the city of Franklin is we partnered with the county, and this fire station will have a separate living quarters attached to it where EMS will be operating an advanced life support unit out of it. Some other highlights that we did during the year, the pandemic wasn't the only emergencies that we were dealing with. We supported 3 deployments of Tennessee Task Force 2 to Louisiana to support our partners on the coast during Hurricane Laura, Sally, and Delta. We're very fortunate that we are part of the Tennessee Task Force 2, comprised of other departments in the region where we have made multiple deployments each year. Next slide, please. Other things that we wanted to bring up was items that you funded last year. And so we wanted to thank you for those funding opportunities and kind of give you an update on where these programs are. We were able to install our ESO module in our firehouse records management system. This ESO module allows us to effectively communicate with our partners at Williamson Medical Center in providing patient information and more efficiently and ensuring that the information is correct. Another major initiative that we've just brought online is our Operative IQ inventory system. This system is going to help us manage our assets and keep better track of our inventory, where we can do ordering and we don't take the chance on ordering too many items where we have things such as our medical supplies that will have an expiration date. They won't sit on the shelf too long. When we rolled this program out, there are several other departments in the city that is interested in this program. So we'll be touching base with them periodically through the year and updating them on the system and hopefully bringing more departments on board. Other initiatives that you funded last year was replacing 112 SCBA bottles. Those bottles were out of date. The air packs are a vital part of our equipment that allows us to enter IDLH environments to protect our respiratory system of our firefighters. We were also able to, at the first of the year, install a Plimo-Vent system at our training center. The Plimo-Vent system captures the exhaust of our diesel vehicles and emits them out into the environment. This project was funded initially, however, because of some of the reductions, we weren't able to implement this project early, but fortunately, we were able to bring this project on during the month of January. And we also purchased another Kronos software. This is Telestaff. This is going to help us do a more efficient job in filling our overtime needs and filling our staffing to ensure that we're doing it in a correct way and ensure we're staffing the stations as needed. Some of the things we want to also highlight was, just as Chief Faulkner had said, we had to learn to operate differently during the COVID pandemic. During the initial stages, the command staff and senior staff of the fire department met and tried to identify ways that we could reduce the potential for exposure to our personnel, therefore allowing us to provide a better response to our community. So several of our fire stations had multiple companies. One of the first steps that we took was creating 5 satellite stations. 3 were in our school systems, 2 in the county, 1 in Franklin Special School District, and the other 2 were on Franklin Fire Department properties. Since the schools opened back up, we've now partnered with First United Methodist Church. Pastor Vonna Wilson has been awesome to work with, and we appreciate the church allowing us to create a temporary fire station at their facility. So what we were able to do is, when we opened these stations up, basically we had to start from scratch. It took a lot of work with all of our other departments to create our internet, our phone systems, and also having to stock the stations to allow it to be a functional facility. Next slide, please. In addition to creating the satellite facilities, we also had to ensure that our EMS protocols and medical protocols were sufficient for the responses that we were making. We had to reevaluate our PPE. We had to do additional testing. We had to ensure that we had a good supply management supply chain going so that we could properly outfit our personnel. And then we continued to evaluate our CDC guidelines and consult with our medical directors to ensure that we're doing best practices as a result of the pandemic. Next slide. So at this time, I'm going to turn this over to, well, no, I'm going to keep going here. I'll give it to Chief King here in just a minute. One of the big things that we did, we first identified the need to have an emergency manager liaison to help manage us or help navigate us through this pandemic. Firefighter paramedic Gino Fantoni, who has an EMA background, was removed from shift and brought to administration to help us navigate that. He was very instrumental in ensuring that we were going down the right path and making the best choices and best practices. And he also kept us up to date on a lot of the CDC guidelines. Another way we had to change doing business with our training programs. Normally, our training consisted of one third to 1/4 of our department would assemble in one location to receive the training, whether it be hands-on or academic in the classroom. Because of the pandemic, we had to reevaluate our procedures. We purchased AV equipment that would allow us to do more video training with a hands-on element and roll that out to the department. Next slide, please. Other highlights in the training division, this year we were able to partner with Nashville Fire Department, and our Franklin Fire Department training division has now become an American Heart Association training site where we were able to ensure that our medical instructors were able to certify our members in various high-level medical certifications. All in all, during FY21, our members of men and women of this department completed over 46,000 training hours. All right, Chief Marler, I'll let you take these next few.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. We were proud to put in service 2 different apparatus this year. Engine 7, which is located at our almost newly opened station. It's been sitting at our temporary station. And Ladder 3, which was received in December and put into service recently. Both were apparatus that we were really needing, and they've proven to be well received so far. What you're seeing here is our new brush truck. We recently went to Colorado to take a look at this and make sure it was on schedule. Of course, they are experiencing problems like everyone else. We expect delivery of it towards the end of this month. This brush truck will also be situated at Station 7. It is set up as a Type 6 pumper, and if we ever needed to respond with another agency, this one is set up exactly how the National Forestry Service would expect a truck to show up at an incident. And this has been a great opportunity for us, and it's a very nice piece of equipment.
Thank you, Chief Marler. I'd also like to add, in as far as spec'ing our equipment, we create apparatus spec teams that consist of the men and women in the department that actually ride these apparatus and have them design them and ensure that they are set up for the response area in which they're stationed. It's been a great year, even in a pandemic, 23 promotions, including my promotion to fire chief, which I'm very honored to be the fire chief of this community. represent the city of Franklin and the Franklin Fire Department. Next slide. All right, so our Deputy Chief, Andy King, will take over, who is also our fire marshal, and kind of give us an update on some of the challenges that his fire prevention division encountered.
Great. Thank you, Chief Johnson. Just a quick overview of prevention achievements. Obviously, we transitioned in March, working remotely. We were very thankful for all the technology we had in place with Microsoft Teams and being able to do remote virtual inspections in many cases, and oftentimes found some efficiencies there, which we didn't recognize, just the savings in travel time, among other things. So we've obviously involved in the planning process for new developments, all the way through to the permitting process and final inspections of buildings. You can see the numbers there on the presentation. More than 1,500 projects reviewed, 2,500 inspections, and 300 existing buildings were reviewed this year, which is an accomplishment. Also very proud of our proactive community outreach efforts. Those were all drastically changed, and we didn't shut down completely. We even had to take our own virtual award ceremony, which we'd already planned in March, and had to basically do a video segment of that and post it on YouTube and city's Facebook website to recognize the work of our people and support staff. Next slide. Additionally, the 9/11 Memorial ceremony was done from Station 6. It was a success with more than 10,000 views. And Fire Prevention March, which we historically have been involved in the schools with the Family Safety House and at the Christmas Galleria. That all changed, and very thankful for Jerry Melton's work to use technology that they use for real estate sales called Matterport and 3D views. And so we've done those for a couple of our apparatus so far, and our stations. Really helps people understand the equipment that we work with and try to help provide good quality education and outreach to our community through a difficult time. Next slide. We also, I guess, took to the streets with parades and really reverse parades in the interest of safety. Those went remarkably well. And then finally, in late November, December, in conjunction with the Firefighters Association, the department was proud to have Santa go around more than 50 neighborhoods in Franklin to hopefully spread some holiday cheer. Next slide.
Thank you, Chief King. Michael, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. So as we look at some of our personnel requests, you'll notice there's about a 0.3% increase in our salaries for over FY21. We are intending to fill all of our 172 authorized positions. We currently have 6 vacancies at this time. Our employee turnover rate, we're running about par. Currently, we have anywhere between 4 and 9 vacancies a year. Currently, we're at 6. We anticipated a couple more retirements this year, and one of the other reasons for our turnover is during the pandemic, larger departments have been targeting our department's personnel through a lateral transfer program, where they can go from Franklin to, for example, Memphis and make substantially more. Some of our younger personnel have taken advantage of that. So we'll be replacing those and hoping to recruit and retain the ones that we replace them with. Next slide. If you'll notice, we do have about a 10% increase in our operating budget, and a large part of that increase is going to be attributed to our computer replacement and our mobile data terminals that's on our apparatus. They're due for replacement this year, as well as our increase in our firefighter physicals. Each year, all of our uniformed personnel in the fire department have to go through an NFPA 1582 physical, and our contract is up this year, and we're expecting the cost to increase. Joanne, is there anything else you'd like to add to this slide as far as an increase?
No, sir, you covered it.
All right, thank you. Michael, thank you. All right, so we do have some program enhancement requests that we would like to ask the board and the city to fund. 16 in all. One would be coming from facilities. The other 15, or the additional 15 would be coming out of our general fund for an approximate $2.4 million budget implication. I won't go through all of the PERs. Some of them are redundant over last year, but you do have them in your packet. But I do want to highlight a few of them. Some of the items that we would consider a priority is creating 3 new shift lieutenants. These new lieutenants would be assigned to our heavy rescue truck, which is responsible for our rapid intervention team and also our specialized rescue disciplines. We will not be requesting new positions, only to promote existing firefighters into these positions. The budgetary impact on this initiative is approximately $49,400. Our next enhancement that we'd like to highlight is one I think everyone will agree that was very valuable during the pandemic and continues to be an asset to the city, is our emergency management person. This person would continue to be our liaison between our Williamson County EMA, as well as ensuring that we are adhering to state and local regulations as pertains to grants and to any type of emergency management request. We'll also be using this person to ensure that our continuity plans here at the city are in place and updated, as well as emergency operation plans for the city. This is a new position with a budgetary impact of approximately $145,000 on the first year. The next initiative that we'd like to highlight is our step-up pay. Currently, a person acting in a higher classification does not get compensated for acting in that position until they've done it for 10 shifts, which in 24, 48-hour shift life is a month. What we would like to do is we respectfully request that we change that into compensating these individuals that step up into a higher position in 24-hour period. So for anything less than one or a 24-hour shift, that would not be considered compensation, but anything greater would be. This just helps gives some of our personnel the incentive to step up. They're assuming the roles and responsibilities and the duties with that higher classification, and we feel like they should be compensated for that. This will have a fluctuating budgetary impact, but our based on the data that Ms. Finn has been gathering through the year, we've got it estimated at approximately $92,500. All right, I'll let Chief Marler take over our vehicle funding once again.
Thank you, sir. As you can see, we're asking for 5 vehicles in this PER. Our Battalion 1 replacement, that vehicle is 10 years old. This is our shift commander's vehicle. It runs all over the city for all 3 shifts. It is a busy truck, typically a 6-year life on it, and this one was due in 2018. We're also asking to replace 2 staff vehicles. Both of those are at their service life. If those were to be replaced, we would of course put those into reserve duty at stations, and they could run for at least another 5 years as vehicles for our personnel at our stations for training purposes and to go between stations. We're also asking for an air and light response vehicle. This will be a vehicle similar to our heavy rescue or hazmat vehicle, that style apparatus. It would replace an 04 Ford chassis and a 96 Chevy. Both are older vehicles and run as separate vehicles to structure fires. We would take both of those and roll this into one vehicle, and this would give us a better, more efficient vehicle to run pretty much any major event or structure fire in the city. It would provide breathing air with a compressor on it, as well as light and any rehabilitation supplies we need for the firefighters on scene. Of course, in the heat or the extreme cold, We would have to provide comfort measures for the firefighters on scene, trying to keep them healthy. We're also asking for a replacement for engine 2. Engine 2 is 18 years old. It is at about 100,000 miles. Its service life is typically 12 years, and it was due for replacement in 2016. It is been a good truck, and it's definitely time that we try to replace that one. Next slide, please, sir.
Thank you, Chief Marler. Our next request would be to acquire 3 new cardiac life pack 15s. This piece of equipment is necessary for us to operate at an advanced life support level. And the purchase of 3 of these units would help us round out to where all of our frontline apparatus have ALS capability. These would be placed on our towers 2, 6, and 1. All right, Chief King.
Yes, thank you, Chief. On this slide, there's 2 items that I'd like to discuss, and those are the one light item labeled hydrant painting, and the other one is the unmanned aerial system, which is also a drone. The department's already using drones, and as just recently, this Saturday, we used those after the blasting accident in McKay's Mill. We were able to visualize it on the side of the hillside and see what was going on in an area that was very difficult to reach. And we also used 2 drones the night of the fire at the Red Pony on Main Street. And so we're recognizing the fantastic ability the drone provides for us and trying to implement those into more of our workflow. There is new and better technology always. One key point about this is one of the larger drones would also be tethered, and what capability that provides that we currently don't have is that we can stay in the air for hours versus right now we're really limited to minutes and battery life. And so with longer events and the need to have continuous ability to monitor a situation, we recognize how that would be beneficial to the city and the department. The second item is hydrant painting, and our department for as many years as we can remember has had firefighters painting fire hydrants. And it really, in the last few years, has been difficult for us because we're not set up to paint well off of a fire apparatus that remains in service for emergency calls. When you get 2 or 3 different colors of paint, you're trying to stop in the middle of the roadway, you're trying to get off the truck and paint a hydrant quickly and get out of the way. It takes a lot of time to do that, and it's really not an efficient use of time. And so other cities in the area, including Nashville, Murfreesboro, Brentwood, and Spring Hill, have all taken some process like this to really make that a specialized task that gets contracted out. It's not that we won't visit fire hydrants, we'll still do all the flow testing, all the static and testing, but it just won't involve that really difficult part for us to do. And so the plan is to have 10 different zones, 1 zone per year, so a 10-year plan. We can capture about 400 of those, multiplied out over 10 years, it gets all 4,000 of our hydrants right now. And it's much better and safer for our firefighters and better use of their time to do other activities. Chief Johnson.
All right, thank you, Chief King. Okay, you can go to slide 30, Michael. I appreciate you taking your time listening to some of our current needs, but as part of this process, we also looked at long range. We broke it down into 2 specific areas, 3 to 5 and 5 to 10. Some of our 3 to 5 year projects would be replacing our records management system. Firehouse was bought out recently by another company, and we've learned that they will not continue to support this software in the future. So we'll begin looking and evaluating new record management systems for the department. Also, we'll be painting the training center. Our training center is creeping up on around 20 years old. In order to keep some longevity, we'll be repainting it in the next 3 to 5 years. We will have some additional personnel that we'll be requesting. We'll be requesting an administrative captain of program management, which will basically take care of all of our records management systems within the city, as well as assist the battalion chief of administration with his day-to-day duties as far as specing apparatus, building fire stations, and replacing and maintaining equipment. As we continue to grow, our training division will also need to grow. We currently have 2 personnel in that division, and that division has not grown since 2006. So we anticipate in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll have a need to increase that staff from 2 to 4. And then we'll also be looking at adding 3 fire safety officers. These will be on shift, 1 for each 24-hour period that will serve as a inspector, investigator, and safety officer in the event of a large event. As we look further down the road, we know that Station 3 was built in 1993. So we were looking at reevaluating that building and whether or not we need to do additions or any type of structural alterations to it. Also, we have Station 2 where we'll be evaluating whether or not an addition would serve a good purpose or not. Next slide, Michael. All right, so at our 5 to 10 year projections, we look at adding at least 12 12 new firefighter positions, increasing our emergency management staff, as well as chief positions to support our medical division, our special operations, and our training. We'll also, as we expand administratively, we'll be looking to add an office manager. And as we begin to go through the accreditation process to become an accredited agency, we will need to fill an accreditation manager's position to manage that program. So in summary, the department operates off the core values: integrity, professionalism, and compassion. In the department and the men and women of this department, that's how they serve the community and visitors that visit Franklin. Our vision is service through excellence, and we've continued to do that. Very proud of the men and women of this department and some of the resiliency that they've shown. They've been able to adapt and overcome and work in new processes that none of us have ever worked in before, all with a positive attitude. They continue to serve with a desire to ensure that we provide the highest level of service. So I appreciate this time to come before you. I know there's a question in the chat box for Chief King.
There is. I believe the mayor had a question about the 300 existing inspections in the city of Franklin that we conducted last year. And the question was about what's the frequency of those inspections and how are those occupancies selected? And so just by those numbers, the majority of our time and work is spent on new construction, but we still receive complaints. We still have automatic fire alarms that activate, which cause us to respond and may generate a notice of violation. And then in this last year, most of our assembly occupancies did not have in-person meetings, and so that wasn't the risk this year. And so we've transitioned to look more at apartment buildings where people are spending more time, and really one of the things that we normally wouldn't be looking at. And so we just try to base that upon risk, and whenever we have time to work on those between our 3 inspectors that are in the field, spread it out as evenly as we can and keep things fair and consistent. I hope that answered your question.
Okay, we'd be happy to entertain any questions anyone has at this time.
Does anyone from the committee have any questions of Chief Johnson or any of the other presenters? If you do, we'll take this a few moments to ask those questions. Are there any questions? If there's no questions, Eric, you have any comments? Mayor, you have any comments?
No, good job,
Mayor's
fire team. Appreciate the work they did on this. I would note that our costs and operations are up a little bit too in this base budget because we'll have a full year of operations of new Fire Station 7. So that's another factor to keep in mind as well, but appreciate the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Stuckey. Mr. Chairman.
6th, then budget presentation for Sanitation and Environmental Services Fund. Jack Turner, you're up. Tucker, you're up. Jack, are you with us? I feel like Paul Feinbaum. Mark, are you with us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would first, of course, like to thank the board and city administration for giving us another opportunity to present our budget. And with me today, I have Mr. Nate Ridley, my assistant director, and Bobby Wayne Sullivan, our operations manager. If Michael will bring the slides up, we'll get rolling. Michael, I think we can go on to the organizational chart. We haven't made any changes to our organizational chart other than the one SES worker that you see that's highlighted in purple, which is an authorized but unbudgeted position from the past year. And later on, we'll get into this, but we are requesting that to be reappropriated and with a job reclassification, which I will explain in upcoming slide.
Mr. Chairman, can I interrupt for a second?
Yes.
So what Jack is pointing out here is something that you're going to see in the next budget today and then throughout the ensuing months. If you remember, part of our process of also making ends meet and reducing expenses for the end of fiscal 20 and 21, we froze a good number of positions. I think originally it was 27 full-time and roughly 11 part-time. That has since gone down. If you remember the first budget amendment this year, we restored 7 or 8 full-time positions within the budget. But we asked all departments, as Eric mentioned at the beginning, when submitting their base budget requests for fiscal 22, if they want to restore positions which were frozen and authorized but unbudgeted. So the reason why it's shaded in purple, and you're going to see this throughout all of the remaining budgets that have restoration requests, is because that is that authorized but unbudgeted position. But at least that's a consistent way of approaching it and showing it to all of you in the ensuing 3 months. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jack.
Okay, I'm ready for the next slide, Michael. Our base budget personnel, we saw 4.9% increase. I can attest to a big portion of that being a lot of overtime that was created while we received, assembled, and delivered over 13,000 blue bin carts. We did that with staff here, and we had to do that obviously when we weren't out on rounds, which created some overtime. That number will decrease next year. Next slide. Operations, we've had a hefty increase in commercial or private haulers coming into our transfer station. Unlike any year we've ever had, and we're projecting that to continue for the duration of the next year, and that creates that 10% difference. Next slide. Our program enhancements. This slide is probably our most important slide. We went back to fiscal year 2016. And if you notice, we had 49 authorized positions in fiscal year 2016. Fiscal year 2017, we had 45. And from 2017 through year to date, we're still at 45. And we've been able to achieve that by moving people, reclassifying people, not hiring. When we had some attrition, and we were able to perform these services all while the city has grown. We judge our service by service locations, and we have these locations. They're all GPS identified in our routing systems. In 2016, we were servicing 21,200 some odd homes. Now in fiscal year 2021, we're up to 24,610 service points. So you can see we've maintained a level of service without increasing personnel. And of course, when we got out of the commercial business a year or so ago, it did help us with personnel, not having to hire. But with the influx of blue bins, which we're now at, as of today, 13,423 registered blue bin customers. We've had quite a bit of growth, and we're at that breaking point of needing personnel and equipment to continue to provide the level of services that we currently provide. We're averaging 600 new homes a year. I can tell you that 1,000 homes to 1,200 homes, depending on the density of how the homes are placed, creates a full route for our services. And just by looking at this sheet, you know, we're on a trajectory of every 2 years, we're adding a route to our services. And when you add a route, that adds a truck that you didn't have and a person to operate it that you didn't have. And if growth continues at the rate it is now, you know, every 2 years, you're looking at an added route to the city, which adds a truck, adds drivers and operators. This is definitely true for trash routes. The other services we provide aren't necessarily picking up 100% of the homes every week, even though we do drive by them, which allows us to cover a little bit more area with less equipment than the trash trucks, if that makes sense. So it's not exactly proportional, and that's why you won't see us asking for a trash truck and a knuckle boom at the same time every year, because we can cover usually more area with our knuckle boom service, which is yard waste, versus a trash truck. But when we add 1,000 homes to the city, that definitely adds a side loader for trash. No question. Next slide. And this is our program request for personnel. And going back to the organizational chart, that one operator, which is currently a worker, we would like to reclassify and actually get funded to a operator. In the future, this department will only be hiring CDL operators. We need operators, we need drivers that can operate the big equipment that we have. And we're asking for an additional operator for the growth. that I showed you on the previous slide. Next slide. One thing that the pandemic did to our department, which was good and bad, good in that it kind of forced us into the direction we were headed with automation. We had intended to graduate into fully automated recycling services over the next 2 to 3 years when we presented the Blue Bin program. However, the pandemic changed that. We basically were put in a position we had to put our backup automated trucks on Blue Bin routes. I know our fleet department can tell you they've struggled keeping those trucks running. It did, however, eliminate the need for the temporary workers that we had before on the rear loading trucks that were picking up blue bags and were going to pick up the blue bins, but then the pandemic hit. And also we had a goal to have 10,000 customers for blue bins, and we've actually overachieved that. And from what I gather from my routing manager, is it looks like we're adding 20 to 30 new blue bins a week now. So that number is going to continue to grow, and I expect it to grow, which is good. It's a good thing. Next slide. Oh, okay, you already slid. No, go back. I'm sorry. I didn't know you'd already moved. Can you go back to the previous slide? Yeah, we're asking for 2 side loaders for the recycling routes that we need drastically. And the new side loader, again, is for the additional homes and the additional route that we've had to create to accommodate the growth. Also, we have a wheel loader that is very old, maybe 10, 12 years old, that has over 12,000 hours, that started off its life in the transfer station, pushing and loading trash into trailers. And when we purchased a new wheel loader 3 or 4 years ago, we converted this wheel loader into our brush yard waste material handler that we used to feed the grinder at the time, and now it's used to feed the burner. This loader is at a point that we've either got to expend several $1,000s, or we need to go ahead and replace it. And if we replace it, we would put the new one at the transfer station and bring the one that's currently at the transfer station to the brush yard, because the transfer station, the usage is a lot higher and the need would be greater for the new one to be there. And that will give us several years of use of the older loader that would be coming from the transfer station to handle our yard waste. Next slide. Transfer station floor resurfacing. We have an area of approximately maybe 400 square feet that has finally worn down after 10, 12 years of operation of the transfer station, not to mention the increase in volume that we're experiencing. that has worn down to a point that we need to have it repaired. There's specialized companies, actually only a couple that I'm aware of. This takes a specialized epoxy with a specialized concrete that actually has metal flake within the concrete to bind to make a hardened surface that can sustain the weight and the shifting of a loader running back and forth across it daily. It's something that just needs to be fixed before it's kind of like a pothole. If you don't fix it, it's just going to keep getting bigger. So we're asking to get this area repaired, and we should be in good shape for a few more years with the floor. We've actually been very fortunate with our transfer station floor. Usually in the industry, if you get 8 years out of a floor without having to do some major resurfacing, you've done well. So we've done extremely well to have maintained the floor to this point, not having to spend any money on it. Next slide. Okay, in summary, we're asking for 2 side loaders for a recycling program, an additional side loader for the growth, replace the wheel loader, reclass the worker to an operator, and add an operator, and a transfer station floor resurfacing. Next slide. In summary, this is where I'd like to point out to folks some of the things that we were able to accomplish over the past year. And one big major accomplishment was the Blue Bin program. You know, as I stated earlier, at the end of January, we had delivered 13,225 Blue Bins. And understand those had to be received, they had to be offloaded, they had to be assembled, they had to be reloaded, and then they had to be systematically delivered to our customers. The team did an outstanding job getting that done. I'm very proud of them. We also, at the same time, added 600 new homes, so they had to have trash carts. We increased our collection efficiency by routing bulky waste through a call-in process while incorporating it into N4 as a routing tool. We reduced employee overhead, increased collection efficiency by fully automating collection, and specifically the Blue Bins, and as well as our yard waste. We did receive the required state permit to operate the air curtain burner. And we've done an outstanding job maintaining collection services during the recycling hub shutdowns. We had our Marshall County recycling facility shut down a couple of times during this pandemic, and we were able to obtain temporary services in Nashville to keep that program moving along. And of course, we continue to meet the challenge of keeping employees safe through the course of the pandemic while still providing multiple collection services to over 20,000 weekly customers. And I do want to stress that what we do, we have to do every week. We provide service to nearly 25,000 homes now on a weekly basis. And there is no tomorrow in our business. We have to complete our routes every day. And this team that I am very proud of, and probably, well, I know is the best in this state and one of the best in the country at doing what we do and doing it efficiently, and probably the most technology advanced operation in this field in the country right now. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of our team. And I hope the city and its residents are also very satisfied with the level of service they get from us. And that's what I have.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
If I could add just a couple comments, I really appreciate Jack's presentation. I want to just make a few notes and talk a little bit about some things I'm thinking about as it relates to the recommended budget. First of all, he cited the blue bin numbers. It's at 13,400 plus today. Our goal a year ago was to get to 10,000. So we're over a third higher than what we had hoped to do in terms of getting those rollouts in place. So I want to compliment the team. I want to compliment our communication staff for working with Jack and his team to get the word out and to inform people about that opportunity. And our citizens jumped on it, and that's great. And for most of them, they're seeing a $4 reduction in their bills over what they were paying because they've paid off their blue bin fees. So that's good for them. And they'll see that this year. The other thing I want to look at or just raise to you to just always keep in mind, we operate this as an independent fund. It is not entirely like the water utility that is a fully self-sufficient fund, although it has operated at a self-sufficient level over the last 3 years. But I will remind you, it wasn't that long ago, 2008, there was a general fund subsidy in excess of $4 million going into our sanitation fund. So we've made great progress. We've looked at how rates can line up and be more of a utility independent fund model. But one of the things you may remember last year at this time, Mark Hilty, our Assistant City Administrator of Public Works, and Jack and his team worked on really sort of a cost of service analysis, not unlike what we do in our water utilities, to see kind of where we are and what really the full costs of operating the utility are. And we were still a little below that with what our rates were and what those costs really project out to be. And, you know, with the pandemic and everything else, we put that on hold. But I think we will take another look at where those rates are. They're in a pretty good place, but I think there's still, when you look at the true cost to operate that operation, that we may need to look at where that is. So we will revisit that and consider that when we talk to you about the budget. So I just want to keep that in mind. And then you saw the chart that Jack showed you on the staffing and the growth. And we did a number of things dating back about 5 years ago where we added some technology. We used this Route Smart technology. We put that in place, which helps us do our routes more efficiently. Jack talked about increasing automation. We changed the work schedules and some other things. And we said to you at the time, this is buying us capacity. And we have seen that because we've absorbed all this additional workload in the last 5 years and not added a single position. We are probably reaching the point where that can't continue, that we're going to need to start looking at positions just because we created that capacity and we've sort of filled that void with the additional homes that have come on board and the way we've had more service demand. So that's just another part to look at. And as we look at how we operate now, a different recycling approach and our overall collection operations, and they continue to look at efficiencies, and that won't stop. But we are going to probably need to, in the years to come, as Jack referenced, look at staffing and equipment because our community is continuing to grow. So I'll just stop with those comments. That frames it. But I'm proud of the progress we've made and the service enhancements, as Jack rightfully talked about at the end. But we'll need to keep looking at this to really make it fully sustainable over the long haul.
Any questions from any of the committee members? I do remember that some of the changes that we made and the fact that we went to maybe 10-hour shifts and utilization of our personnel, also the side loaders and all of the technology that we did. It has worked out well for us, but we knew 4 or 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, that we would catch up with the number of homes that we needed, and we would be needing to add staff rather than relying on the technology that we use to push those numbers out for 3 or 4 years. But if there's no questions from any of the committee members.
I've got a question if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mayor.
I think congratulations, first of all, and we're excited about the recycling and how our communities responded. But I was curious how much or the tonnage we're diverting because of recycling. What kind of percentage are we diverting?
Nate or Wayne, do you have those numbers in front of you?
Mr. Mayor, we actually got a better count on participation numbers. We're looking at at least 54% participation of everyone of the 25,000 service points. And then we're right at 17 to 20% diversion rate. We'll probably have to check those numbers again to make sure we're that close, but we've got a better count on it now that we have those service points and we're able to track those service points. The tonnage, we'll have to check that and get back with you with the tonnage.
I think those percentages give me what I need to know. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, one thing real quickly that we've noticed going to the blue bins and the amount of cardboard that people are using these days. Number one, people are overstuffing cardboard and it creates a corking of the cart to where when the automated arm picks it up and even shakes it and sets it down, the lid closes and the truck leaves, and the resident comes and opens the cart and the material's still in the cart because they've squeezed in the cardboard to the point that you can't hardly pull it out by force, much less dump it. So we're learning and residents are learning. But the weights are staying pretty consistent with what we were seeing in blue bags. I do think a lot of cardboard is going to the local convenience centers that we're not able to service. We encourage that. So overall, the program's been very successful, Mayor.
Jack, just one other comment for anyone listening. I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand the significance of household waste and the recycling and your yard waste and what it does, because we pay for the household waste. We do not necessarily pay for the recycling. And what it does eliminates the cost and plus eliminates the landfill and makes landfills usage greater. So what do we pay per ton for the household waste?
And where does it go?
Right now, I think we're at $37 per ton and some change. For MSW going to by county.
And does that include the transportation cost too, Jack?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, that's total cost.
And the recycling piece right now, typically you're right, and it has been the case where we don't have to pay a tip fee. Right now we're having to because of what's happened in the market. It's lower than the landfill fee, but we've had to do that, and that's an ongoing issue for us to look at the cost to to process recycling. So that's just something for us to keep on our radar. Jack and his team have done a good job of managing that, because the pandemic and the change in the worldwide market for recycling has affected us too, but it's still a valuable service, and it is a net cost savings compared to landfill, and it's obviously better stewardship of the environment. So that continues to be something we look at and trying to manage that the best way we can.
Thank you, Eric.
You're
You're
muted.
still muted.
Well, let's see if we're unmuted now. Let's go to the Parks Department with Lisa Clayton.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon. And just as Jack, as a colleague, I'm also a citizen of Franklin, and they do an amazing job. I've seen them get out of their cars and their trucks and pick up cardboard and help. And so we greatly appreciate their service within our community. So thank you, Jack. Today we have Paige Cruz, the Assistant Director, on this call with us today. Brian Walker, the Urban Forestry Superintendent, and Kevin Lindsay is also on here with me today, who is over our Facilities and Maintenance Divisions. And thank you for allowing us to come before you. Michael, if we can pull up the PowerPoint, we're just going to kind of go through the next slide, please. We're going to start with our vision, look at our organizational chart, sharing where we are today, look at the base budget, some personnel, some of our operations and capital. We also have several program enhancements, and we're also going to look at the future of what that outlook would be. Next slide, please. So in 5 years ago, we developed a Parks Master Plan, and we developed a vision statement within that master plan. And during that time period, we do strive as a department to live up to this statement in each division. And so as I always think it's important to bring this back out every year to share with you all, because we will be bringing forth an update to the master plan in this calendar year. But it's to provide a high quality, accessible parks, historic sites, trails, and recreation amenities that will create positive recreational, healthy experiences for all residents and visitors of the city that make living, working, and playing in Franklin the city of choice for the region. And I share that this past year, we had an amazing year because of the parks in the year of COVID. We saw more people come out to our parks, when even though we had to close things down and we had to alternate our schedules, we saw an amazing amount of people in our residents find parks that they've never even used before. And so thank goodness we had trails and those amenities in Franklin, and we are very thankful for that. Next slide, please. So the next one is our organizational chart. I think Michael framed it during the SES presentation. We do have around 44 full-time employees. We have 46 too that we are requesting that were unbudgeted and request for restoration. We'll add around 171 back to the base budget. That is the Parks and Recreation Superintendent and a turf specialist. These are both are in the same division and that work with our athletic and our programming divisions. It's really important once we hired our assistant director, having someone that's paying attention to being a liaison to all of our user groups with Franklin baseball and Cowboys and lacrosse and schools. And as we increase in our park system, this position becomes very important to support those supervisors, that staff, and also those organizations within our community. And the turf specialists, these are working on our athletic fields. They're working tournaments. So it is definitely an important part. But we are leaving 3 unbudgeted positions still vacant that we believe that we can get by for another year. One would be a part-time tree worker, one would be one seasonal facilities worker, and one is an intern. But that currently is our organizational chart. Next slide. We're looking at from a base budget for personnel of our salaries and wages for FY22 of around $3.1 million. We are looking at an overtime budget of around 46 over the last couple of years. And of course, last year, it was definitely altered with the overtime because of events. Events were decreased. And so we worked different types of events that we had and had some great success in December with a drive-through Christmas extravaganza at Eastern Flank. So that was important to do for our residents, but we are placing this back because we do believe in 2022 events are going to come back. They might be limited, but they are coming back as Franklin baseball is starting in this month, and they will start games in March and April. We are expecting to have events at Harlansdale, and so we do expect the overtime to be where we are recommending. The base budget request, we have total operations around 2.3%. It's an increase from last year. And the reason for some of this increase is we also have life cycle costs for many of our equipment, and that life cycle cost comes into play in this fiscal year versus what it did last year. We also have an increase in repair and services for all of our equipment and vehicles, as well as computer hardware, as it is time to update many of those within our department in our radio system. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to turn it over to Paige Cruz, the Assistant Director. She's going to go through several of our program enhancement requests, and then I'll be back to go over some capital and some of our future. Paige?
Okay, this first one that you see here on the screen is 2 personnel program enhancement requests. And the first one is for a full-time maintenance trail worker. We currently are doing this more in-house within both of Kevin's divisions. One primarily is doing a lot of this work, and we want to be able to concentrate more on trails, more on mountain bike trails, anything the city has, and as we continue to grow, this is a position that we want to do that, to provide that detailed service to. And we feel right now it's kind of fallen within a division, and we're not getting to concentrate as much as we would like, but we feel like it's a must-have for the future growth. And this second one here, reclassification, turf specialist 1 to a turf specialist 2. Recently, I guess in the last year or so, this we were able to go from a 1 and have a 1 and a 2. Most of our staff, so we have currently 2 that are 2s. We have 2 currently, possibly 3 that would want to move to that 2 position if approved. And this basically allows them to grow. For those staff that don't want to be a supervisor or not yet maybe ready to be a supervisor, this allows them to grow in this position. And obviously it's a pay grade difference, as you see. And, also they do have to have specific certifications and specific criteria that they have to meet to be a 2. And more training and more years of experience are considered in this as well. But it also was done as part of retention. And for us, we were seeing a lot of turnover with staff within a year, year and a half, sometimes even under a year. And so far we've seen some success with this, but we are getting to the point that a lot of our 1s we're ready to start looking at them becoming 2s with approval through this process. This next enhancement is for Eastern Flank Event Facility siding project. As many of you know, and you're probably in this building quite a bit, not during 2020, I know, but in previous times. If you see the outside, that is stucco. It is not our favorite, I guess that's to say the least, and it is dated. So basically, we're looking to replace this. This is a request we've asked for before, and obviously we know COVID happened, but we would be looking at adding hardy plate to this, going back with that versus stucco. And also it's just a very dated. From afar, it doesn't look so bad, but up close it does. We've had some mold issues that we've had to deal with in the past and some rotten wood. We're afraid without doing this project, we'd be faced with more of that in the future. And this project will not just include that, but it will also include the ceiling, under the ceiling porches, replacing those ceilings. It would also replace gutters as well. So it's a big project. It would probably require us being out of this building at least 30 days, could be 45 days, depending on who would get this bid. But this is something we feel like, since this is our revenue, our main source of revenue, it's not our only source, but it is our one building that we obviously rent out. And you can see the revenue listed within this program enhancement. So we feel like this is just a must need for the future, just to improve this building. This next one is for Pinkerton Park, and this is playground equipment. This is a replacement. And we're looking to replace a couple pieces that are just aged and basically seen their life expectancy and over 20 years old. And this is more naturalized piece of equipment that we're looking at. We don't have it anywhere else or nothing exactly like this. So this is something we would like to add and just update Pinkerton. It is obviously, as everyone knows, very popular. So this is something we think that obviously the community would notice, and all the people that actually take their children there. So we feel like this would be a huge improvement to this area. This next enhancement is for a new piece of equipment. It is a heavy duty field top maker. It is also known to many as it's basically a phrase mower. And we currently have used this over the last couple of years, and we've contracted this work out. And we feel like it is something that we would like to own, essentially because we're paying so much to have this service done. We have a tractor, or we will have soon, that we can actually use this with. And we can use it, and currently the work is being done on baseball, football fields at Jim Warren, Liberty, Fieldstone. It can be used at Harlansdale. So it's a piece of equipment that not just athletics can use, but also landscaping or grounds divisions. So we feel like it would just enhance not just fields, but all our parks in many different ways. And again, it can be used for special projects, or it can be used just to basically remove lips off a baseball field. So it's been used many times for different reasons so far. And some of you may have seen this on social media. We had something posted with, a while back, it's probably been a year or so. So it is a piece of equipment that would be used heavily if we owned it. So. In this slide, Lisa, are you taking this one, or do you want me to share?
No, I'll be happy to come back. This slide basically is Tuesday night. Many of you saw the capital projects that we had, that Mark and I presented to the team along with Paul and Kevin, Brian, and Paige, all at different times are what we consider within the department project managers for these specific projects. What's on the slide today, and I'll go from left to right, is Bicentennial. It's the Southeast Municipal Complex. You've got Robertson Lake. You've got Harlansdale, which is the main barn project. You have with Los Designs, that's a great name, isn't it, Eric? With Liberty Park, and then we also have a trail extension. So these projects, we share this with you because this is the future of Franklin. It's the future of our park system. But along with not just doing capital, as we might have parkland and hotel, motel monies or facility tax monies allocated, there will be a general fund impact within the next 5 years. Next slide, please. So we're giving a brief, our goal to bring forth as we're bringing the capital projects and identifying, because many of these projects are around 60% in design. The goal is by next year that we will have a full budget that outlines not only your personnel, but you have your total operations and what the capital cost will be. We've already begun this process as we've been meeting with our staff internally in our divisions. And not to go through every specific detail, but we wanted to be able to provide you enough that there is an impact once these particular projects are accepted, then there's an impact on the personnel. So when you look at the main barn, what we talk about with personnel is programming. You would have hire one person for programming, but you'd also have a half a person for facilities and a half a person for athletics. Well, what does that mean? For us, that means you don't just have the barn it'll become an event facility. It'll become an educational destination. It will become something for our community, but you will also have it to where the arena with Friends of Franklin Parks will have events taking place there. You will also have events on the grounds. And facilities is also part of the division in which does the cleaning of our public restrooms and the after, pre, and post events. So all of those personnel are very important, and that's the same as you see to the next. It also shares some of the equipment that we will be looking to purchase. If we have a warming kitchen, that's kind of what reminds you at Eastern Flank that we would have in the barn. It's not a catering kitchen, it's just a warming, but you've got to at least supply tables and chairs and cleaning supplies and how we clean restrooms and equip offices, so allows for our staff when we are on site that they can plug in and they work and be able to accept revenue or any type of funding that may be. The same is for Southeast. You can see where machinery and equipment will come into play. These are items from our current budget that allows that you know that these are the things in which, as this park is phased in, or even with Robertson Lake, we consider in the department that this would be one. And so this is 233 acres when you combine Southeast and Robertson Lake property. So over the next 10 years, we do believe that you would have all of these personnel on site that would be programming these and maintaining them on a daily basis. Michael, next slide. The next is Bicentennial and Liberty Park. Again, you're being able to see the equipment and the line items that will be affected at Bicentennial of having a person that will program. We foresee that at this particular park, especially during the spring and fall events, our goal would be, and again, we've said this before, any events that you might have even 35 to 5,000 people that we normally close downtown, this is where we would put those events to be able to have an event street, be able to have the event on this site, and then staff to be able to maintain the site. So that affects every division. Along with Liberty Park, will become before you. We've done a new master plan. It's around a little over close to $15 million in improvements. Our goal is to fund that park by parkland impact fees. That right there shows the impact that new development has on our park system. And for that to be a community park that multiple people that surround that area and new that come into the area are going to be able to supply and build that park, I think it's just a blessing for this community. But there is an impact and will be coming forth as we build that park out over the next 8 years. So that concludes our presentation, Chairman. Any of our team is here. We're happy to answer any questions you may have. But thank you for allowing us to present to you today.
Any questions from any of the committee members?
I have one question. I guess we all know the hotel motel tax revenues are down significantly. And I guess that fund, services debt on like Eastern Flank and Harlansdale. Are there going to be maybe, I don't know, direct or indirect impacts on some of these capital projects, or are parkland dedication fees and general fund transfers going to be able to kind of keep a lot of these projects on track?
Short answer is we'll get back to you. The hotel motel fund certainly is impacted, it is the single greatest impact we are seeing in our revenue stream out of any of the funds of the city of Franklin. We think we took appropriate measures and steps to reduce that. We reduced most of our development funds by 50%. Hotel, motel, tourism, we also did the same with for fiscal 21. That is the only fund that has been performing under that severely reduced budgeted expectation. We are currently going through the analysis. You heard the expense side of the capital of the CIP for the parks on Tuesday night. We're working internally with them and each of the departments, looking at the financing model and updating it from 10 years ago with the estimates of parkland dedication, with the estimates of the general fund, and certainly with where we would plug in hotel motel. When it comes to funding parks capital related projects, we generally will start new with parkland dedication funds because of the timing of some of those funds and where those funds can be applied. And you heard some of that during Lisa's presentation on Tuesday night. But our plan is somewhere in the April to May, June timeframe to come back to you with that funding model and update to the CIP. Eric?
Yeah, just to add, just as you look at the structure, our hotel motel tax is a 4% tax. A quarter of that, or 1%, goes directly to our support of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, but that's driven by what we actually receive. So that doesn't really create a challenge there. You're right, we have the kind of fixed debt obligations for Harlansdale and Eastern Flank. Those aren't, those are getting closer to completing those debt obligations. So that's not that far off. And then we have used it for projects primarily in the parks and areas that drive visitor traffic. And so there are some projects to look at. It certainly has some impact, but we're also carrying a pretty healthy fund balance into when we hit the pandemic. So we've got some cushion there, and we hadn't planned to use all that cash aggressively. We're going to use it eventually, but we have a little bit of play to adjust, but we will need to adjust a little bit with timing. I think, we think a year or so down the road, it'll get back closer to where it was, but we've got to continue to weather it. And, those hotel occupancy rates are nowhere near where they were a year or so ago. So that is certainly something we'll be keeping an eye on. And as Michael said, updating our financial model, that will be factored in.
And we'll be presenting the hotel motel budget and our best estimates in April to the committee.
Guys, I just know, with the hotel motel tax obviously being the most impacted fund, I would probably say that parks had the biggest upside usage over the last year of any department. I mean, during the summer, you saw those cars parked all along Lewisburg Avenue, the canoe access points, and people using the trails and biking and everything. So, yeah, even if they're short, I think we need to keep funding all those parks.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. You may saw a little less usage of ball fields because of some of the things we had to modify, but you certainly saw a significant increase at canoe launches and trails and other areas. So it is a vital resource, and continuing to expand it so it's accessible and available to the growing areas of our city is a big focus, as you saw in the capital projects.
Eric, what is our contractual obligations to the visitors, the Convention and Visitors Bureau? I mean, if we're doing 4%, 1% goes to that, what are we contractually obligated to do?
Well, that's just, you'll see this next year a specific contract, but you've had a long time policy commitment of that component. So, I don't know that it's contractual, but it is a long-term policy. And actually, this is something we've identified as staff. We do contracts with the outside entities that receive city funding. This had been more of a dedicated stream, so we hadn't treated it quite the same, but you will see us bring forward a contract, a year-to-year contract that gives the specifics around the public purpose and the reporting requirements and the other elements that we do with all the other entities that we provide some funding for.
Any other questions from any other committee members?
If I could make a quick comment.
Okay, Mayor.
A couple of comments coming out of that, and the first one would be about the Convention and Visitors Bureau for the people watching and hearing that 1% of that 4% goes to Convention and Visitors Bureau. I would just remind the listeners that tourists prior to the COVID pandemic were spending $1.3 million a day. That equates to about almost $500 million a year. So tourism is very important to us. And I think the amount of money that we're sending them to encourage tourism is well worth it. I'm glad we brought up Bicentennial Park. It had a little discussion the other night in our work session. And as we looked at the cost of that capital project moving forward, I really like the description of it's an event street. And I think we're very fortunate to have that type of space very close to our downtown so we can relieve some of the pressure from some of the events and expand some of the events down in that area. So just when I drive by there, it's unbelievable how many people are down in that area eating lunch, picnicking, just walking. So I think it continues to be a significant project. It's just sad that it's taken so long to get there. Thanks.
Any other questions? I would add a comment. I think Alderman McClendon said something the other night about 97, and I do remember 99, and that was the 200-year bicentennial celebration. So we have been in this area for a long time, working on, for the lack of a better term, some portion of that park and some portion of that area. So appreciate those comments, Mayor. Let's go then to the monthly reports for February 2021. Mike, you're up.
Good afternoon. With the monthly reports, the Finance Department tries to highlight any financial trends we are seeing in between quarterly reports. And in fact, the second quarter report through December will be on your March agenda. If we look at the executive summary, we'd like to maybe just highlight 5 items of note. From Schedule 1, November 2020 local sales tax was slightly less than last November. And for year to date, the revenue is 1.3% over last year. And these results may actually be better than expected, as the comparison is being made to months before the pandemic. And we'll actually know more about local sales tax next month when we see the amount from December sales.
May I make a comment, Mike, about sales tax?
Absolutely.
I guess my comment to this report is that we really haven't seen whatever our new trend is going to be on sales tax collections. We had, if you'll recall, the last month, the month for October was very strong. We were up about 6%, and that was the first time that we had been up for a month year over year since the very start of actually calendar year 20. So we really have not had a strong trend. However, which is to be expected. But although we are up slightly 1.3% for the fiscal year so far, we really are basing that increase off of a very strong October. We did have a couple of months that were essentially flat, and then the month of November was a slight decrease of less than 1%. So as Mike said, we certainly will see what happens with our December sales. But as your finance staff, we have not seen a trend on sales tax to report to you.
For the second item, for development revenues in Schedules 2 through 5, there actually has been an absence of a trend. December was greater than last year, after actually we saw October and November actually being lower. And then even if you go back to July through September, the revenue was both up and down, as the revenue itself, or all of these revenues, are dependent on the timing of development. Item number 3, and this is from Schedule 6, gasoline tax revenue has been lower in most months with less travel. And overall, the revenue is right now at 5% less. But again, it's being compared to months that were before the pandemic in the prior year. From Schedule 7 and 8, this is what we had just spoke about the fund most impacted being the hotel motel tax fund. And the fund balance at the end of last year was $7.5 million. I knew that was something talking about what the balance was in the fund. And as you look at current year, hotel motel tax revenue is lower by 50%. And if you look at the conference center, although this month or the month of December had a gain back in the previous year. It had a loss of $50,000 or over $50,000 in December of 2020. And the last item to note is, although it's not highlighted this month, we are looking to make a report focused on grants at an upcoming meeting. And we're thinking maybe possibly after the budget presentations. And what that is actually schedule number 9. That was the high points I knew that we had seen, the trends we had seen. Did the committee have any other questions, or did Christine, Eric, did y'all have any additional comments?
Mr. Chairman, I have just a quick comment, if I may. I'd like to ask, just for the presentation, when we start talking about hotel motel tax, and you'll probably do this, but just to say, we've had a huge actually increase in the number of hotel rooms in the last 12 months as well. So it'd be interesting to compare, kind of compare how that looks, and maybe do a forecast if we go back. I don't know how many rooms there are, but I mean, there's been quite a few, and so with increased rooms and a reduction in hotel motel tax, that even multiplies really the impact that the COVID-19 has had. So I don't know what I'm really looking at, but I think that's something that we should kind of examine and see, especially if we're doing forecasting in the future. It may have an impact on what we look for. That's all.
Any other questions of Mike? Mayor, Eric, any comments?
Just quickly, you've seen over half of the budget in terms of personnel and dollars just today. So I want to thank our 4 departments that presented to you. I think they did a really good job of assessing where we are, what they're doing, and what the needs are moving forward, which is what we ask them to do. And this is a big chunk, but there's more to come, more departments, of course. But I want to thank you for your time and attention today. And we'll start at 1 o'clock in March and April, as well as we move through the budget process.
And again, not to put a downer, but I think we've still got a tremendous challenge ahead of us this year with the COVID and all the other financial challenges that we have. But I do appreciate the presentations, and they were well thought out and well done. So thank you, department heads. If there's no other business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Proper motions are a second.
Second.
Let's do a roll call vote. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Speedy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Shore, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. We are adjourned.